it's happening in Oxfordshire. They say smoke-free by 2025. We've got a number of guests on this as well. We'll see what they make of it. Let's talk first of all to Dr. Rebecca Cooper, public health consultant in Worthing. Now, she used to run the West Sussex Smoking Service and was a public health consultant in Oxfordshire. Rebecca, always good to have you on the programme. Actually, it's very nice to be talking to you about something completely different to COVID for a change.
Isn't it lovely? My goodness, lovely to talk to you too.
Let's talk about this because you, as I mentioned, you were a public health consultant in Oxfordshire. Yeah. What do you make of these proposals they've come up with?
Yeah, so from a public health point of view, from a general health point of view, I think they're fantastic. I can see that there needs to be discussions about how it's going to affect businesses, and also there are always the discussions between sort of public health interventions and an individual's right to choose and freedom, and those are great discussions to have, no problem with that. I think what I would say is that tobacco use, in 2020 it caused 90,000 deaths, and if we think about that compared to, say, coronavirus, which caused 75,000 deaths, and how absolutely up in arms we were about coronavirus, and we did everything we could, to stop that, and we still are. 90,000 deaths from something that is preventable, to me, sort of looking at those outdoor spaces where not only you've got people who are smoking, but you've also got that second-hand smoke. So if you think about a pub garden, if you don't smoke, if it's a busy pub garden, you are still inhaling that smoke. To me, in terms of public health, and in terms of my own health, my family's health, it makes good sense to me, and I can see the argument for it, and I'd be for it. But I appreciate that other people want to have those discussions, and they're really important too.
I remember when you used to go to a pub, and you'd take it for granted that you'd quite often walk into a cloud of smoke, and then you'd walk out and you would stink of smoke, and we kind of accepted that. And now looking back on it, you think, well, why was that okay? Do you think maybe in a few years' time the same will come to that experience? And I had it the other day. We were sitting outside meeting a meal, smoke wafted over from the neighbouring table, which was the smoking table. There wasn't much we could do about it. Do you think that, in a few years' time, this would just be something we think, well, why didn't we do this earlier?
I think that's a really good point. I absolutely think you've hit the nail on the head. When we start talking about doing these things, people are up in arms and saying, my goodness, this is awful. You're totally right. When we used to go to nightclubs, we used to come home and we could not get the smell of their smoke out of our hair for days. It used to be a normal thing. Now, as you say, times have moved on. Things have changed. The norm has become different, through enforcement, through sort of local regulations, through making environments smoke-free. We now think, that it would be pretty horrible to go into a nightclub and not be able to breathe because your lungs are getting blackened. And I think the same, as you said, in a few years in outdoor public spaces, it'll just be accepted that we don't smoke. And as a byproduct, hopefully we'll have fewer and fewer people who are taking up this habit, which ultimately it will kill you. And I know I smiled when I heard your sort of first text, because I think, of course, people should be free to live their lives as they want. But as somebody who saw her granddad die of lung cancer, of all the ways to go, lung cancer really, it should not be at the top of your list. Dying sort of old and happy in your bed is what we all want. And lung cancer is a terrible way to go. So if we can stop that and all the other diseases, like emphysema and things like that, that's great. It's people's quality of life. It's not just sort of, people dying early. It's sort of the quality of life that people have.
It was funny. Yesterday I was talking about when I was at school, and I remember going to those lessons where they show you someone dying a horrible death as a result of smoking. And then inevitably a whole group of people, sort of 13, 14-year-olds, will dispatch themselves off to the behind the bike sheds to have a cigarette, because you think you're invincible when you're that age. But actually, when you've seen someone in your own family, and my grandfather, died a horrible death as a result of a smoking-related illness, okay, I think it impacts on you more. I grew up in a very anti-smoking household because my mother had seen firsthand that death. But it's difficult once you've taken up smoking to give it up. It's a real addiction.
It is, absolutely. And I think you're absolutely right. I think there are, those of us that have seen people die of lung cancer. And unfortunately, when I was a doctor on the wards, I saw far too many people dying of smoking-related diseases. But if you haven't had it, like you say, and when you're young, you do think you'll live forever. The trick there is sort of, one, to sort of find some peer, sort of, people of equivalent age who are able to get the message across. Me as an old 43-year-old, 18-year-olds aren't that interested in what I've got to say, but, they're interested in what other 18-year-olds have got to say. And also make it an environment where, smoking is just not normal. It's not something that you do. So there are issues news about illicit tobacco use. So when I was Commissioner of Smoking Services in Oxfordshire, we would work very closely with trading standards because illicit tobacco was a real problem, particularly for young people. You can get illicit tobacco really cheaply. It gets pushed towards young people. And if you can stop that as well, then tobacco is simply, it's just not available. And so, kids are not starting. But you're right, it's very addictive once you start. And having run the Stop Smoking Services in West Sussex and worked with people who are trying to quit, my goodness, you really don't want to start, because to try to quit is a massive undertaking.
Do you know, it's really interesting. A text that's just come in that hadn't occurred to me. This is from Claire. She says, vaping is as bad. We don't know the harm it does. The flavours stink. People always blow the smoke vapour away from their friends and over you. This is something else that's popped up, hasn't it? The smoking has become less common, but vaping, that's something that is on the up.
Yeah, so vaping's an interesting one. So the honest answer on that is that jury's out. So there are particulates in vaping. And if I was going to say, the ideal would be not to vape and not to smoke. But compared to smoking, if you've got to do something, and as I say, giving up that habit is very, very hard. And some people do find that vaping is sort of the way that they can stay away from tobacco, then that would be preferable to smoking. But there are particulates in the vape. And, we just don't have enough long-term data yet to know what the long-term consequences of vaping are. So we'll keep collecting that data and see what happens. But it definitely isn't, it doesn't have the carcinogens in that tobacco that cigarettes do.
Well, it's always good to talk to you, Rebecca. Thank you so much for joining us on the programme this morning with the medical perspective.